Hey there everybody, and welcome back to another very quick codeless application development tutorial. In today's video, I'm going to be walking you through how to create an application and essentially decode JSON, or in this case using Appgyver, which is a free app builder where you don't need code. We're going to make an API request, and then we're going to clean it up so that users don't have to see all the data that's returned. So for example, in today's video, as a bit of a teaser, we are going to take an application that will take something like this, which is an API call using ChatGPT, which I'll have another video linked in the description. But you'll see we're getting the full payload back. So we're getting this full ID, all this other information. I'm going to be revoking the API token at the end of this video. But the idea here is you're seeing, hello, how can I assist you? But what we want to see is something slightly different. So I'll show you exactly what we're going to be doing as a little bit of a teaser. So we're going to save the changes, and then we're going to do the exact same call with my new structure, and you'll see it's much more attractive. Hello, how can I assist you today? Instead of what we saw previously. So let's go ahead and jump straight into how we can actually get this set up. It's much easier than you think. Now, before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe and check out the channel for new content. All right, so jumping straight in, the original setup was using a data HTTP request. So in this case, what we were doing was we were making a request to the API for ChatGPT, and then what we were doing is we have our API key in this header list, and in the request body, it's very simple. We're using the model GPT 3.5 Turbo. So this is the request body, and you can actually get this from this page here, which is the Open API documentation. But the idea is, even if you're not using ChatGPT and you're using any other platform, we can use some built-in functionality in Appgyver to make this much easier and more appealing. So what we're going to do first is we are going to go to the Data tab, and then you'll see we have this page set up here. Now, yours will likely be empty, so you'll name the resource, which is really just any name that you need. You can give it a description, and then this is the URL that you're doing your data post to. Now, bear in mind that you may need URL placeholders. So for example, if you need to post to a specific collection or document or whatever the case is, you can add in URL placeholders by doing something like what they have set up by default in the get record option, where it's /ID in brackets. And then the idea is when you test it, the ID is what you would paste in here. Now, if you're having issues with this, bear in mind that you may need to alternate between using ID with brackets or without, depending on your specific use case. So in this case, what we're going to do is we have our same exact resource URL that we're doing our post with, and we're going to go down to create record post. You'll need to select here to enable the method, and then you're going to need to configure it. So my API key here is public, but I'm revoking this after the ChatGPT video, so you're not going to actually be able to use it. But the idea is you would set your headers here. So authorization, if you need to put content type, JSON, etc., all of that would go here. And then you can go to test. Now in this case, we need to test our call, and we want to see how exactly it's functioning. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our request body, and I'm going to copy just like you would if you were doing a similar function. So in this case, what we will do is we're going to go back to our data tab, and we are going to click on this page here, and then we're going to go to the post test, and then here you can see we're going to run the test. Now, if you do this before setting your properties, nothing's going to happen, or you'll get an error back. So you'll see here I already have some data, and I'll walk through why in a minute, but we're just going to basically just paste this in as if you were doing it as well. And then we'll click Run Test. Now, in this case, you'll get some kind of a response back, and then you may need to address any errors that you have. But the idea is this is the full response that we got when we did this at the beginning of the video and just ran the blank call. Now, in this case, you could set the schema from response if you want, but as you can tell, this is a lot of data to go through. Now, if you're interested, one thing that makes this a little bit easier is we can go back to the Configure tab. So because we have such a complex data structure here, we really just want what's in choices and what's in the brackets. So here we can go over to our Configure tab and we can type in choices and then go back to test and run the exact same test. And once this comes back, you'll see we only get what's in brackets in the choices tab, which is going to make it much easier for us to work with this data because this is all that we really want in content here. So we're going to click Set Schema from Response. And what it's doing is it's setting this schema down here, basically saying, hey, here's what each of these are. So now when we go to our schema tab up top, yours will likely be put to use get schema or custom schema with nothing here. So you're going to want to select custom schema. And then the idea here, this is only if you're posting the data using this tab, so to speak. But what you're going to be doing is you're building the schema from the body of your API request. So in this case, what you pasted in here when we pasted all of this in together, you'll see we have model GPT 3.5 Turbo, messages, and then this content, and then temperature, and then this content. So what we're doing is we're rebuilding this. So the schema is going to be each of the items on the left in double quotes. If you have something a little bit more complex, like a list or an array in brackets, I'll walk through what we're going to do for that specifically in a moment. So back to our schema, I pasted up top just to make it a little bit easier to access. So we'll see we need model, messages, and temperature. So I put model, temperature, messages. All you need to do is click add property, click the property, change the name, and then change the value type if you need to. In this case, we will remove this, and you'll see we have messages set up. So again, these two are text types, and then this one here is a number. And if you want to make it a little bit easier and you have a static value, you can type the initial value here. So once we've done that, we're going to click Save because we have saved the schema of the response and what we're posting. So now we are going to add in the create record function, which over here, if you're scrolling through, it's under the data create record. So you'll drag it over and we will connect these two. And then in this option, when you click on the data create record, you're going to find your resource. So you'll just select the one that you've created. And then for the record properties, when you click here, you should see this content if you've already added it. So I added mine before the video, but if you remember, I told you type in the number of whatever it is you're doing in the initial value if you want it to be static. You can change the value here, but each of these three properties map to the properties up here, which is what we were just building. So you'll see we have model, messages, temperature. Here we have model, messages, and temperature. Then we have the model that's actually listed here. And then we have the temperature that's actually listed here. Now, this was the one I told you was a little bit more complex, which was the brackets or the array. If you want to work through this, you can, when we have the messages option, I have it set as text, and I've bound it to a formula, and I've just pasted it in just like this. So we have the brackets, role, user, content, ChatGPT send, and you can tell this is what's in brackets right next to messages up here. And the app variable ChatGPT send is my app variable that is tied to this input box. So I know I'm moving kind of quick, but I want to walk you through what's going to happen next. So once we say, hey, create record, we click this button. This is initiating the action that we were doing when we were working in the data tab. So the next thing that we need to do is set our app variable. So you can click this slider and create as many app variables as you need. In this case, I have an app variable called ChatGPT reply, and then tied to this input field is ChatGPT send. So when I click this button, set app variable ChatGPT reply, the assigned value is a formula, and it looks just like this here. Now, if you don't have this, I'll show you exactly how you can get it instead of typing it out. So the easiest way is to type in out, and you'll see outputs, all of these different things populate down here, and you can figure out what specifically you need. So in this case, if I paste mine in, so we'll type in outputs, part of the reason we typed in the schema from before, or we worked through that schema, is so we can see the sample values here. So you'll see message content, and then I'm sorry, I cannot answer your question, etc., etc. So this was the actual response that we wanted. So we'll double click this and we'll click save, and then we're going to go into troubleshooting mode and see if everything's working as expected. So we're going to go in here and we'll type in hey, and we'll click chat, and you'll see it showing up as undefined. Now, when we click inspect, this shows us the developer tools. The first thing we need to make sure of is that our API calls are completing as expected, which they are, because we have the API call here and here. And you'll see you can get the response values right here. So the idea is, at this point, we're just trying to figure out, okay, what do we need to change so that we're getting this information exactly as we should be. So this output should be the output of create record response, and you'll see it should have the content, but it's not showing up as we're expecting it to. So this particular issue is relatively difficult to diagnose, but relatively easy to fix. So what we're going to do is we're going to our data tab here, and we're going to post. Now, I know that we originally chose to add in this response key path to kind of narrow things down. However, in this case, we're going to undo that change, and we're going to use something a little bit more broad. So we're going to go to test, and we're going to copy over this section here, which again is in the Open API documentation, but you're copying your content from whatever call you're making. We'll paste it in as a formula, keeping everything else we've done before, and we're going to click Run Test and work with this giant response here, because our formula is going to specify choices, message, content. So what we'll do is once you've done that, don't forget set schema from response, click save, and you'll see that your response in the schema section should be a decent size. So now what we're going to do is we are going to connect a set app variable to our create record function, and this is going to be our ChatGPT reply. And in this set app variable function, the assigned value is going to look just like this. Now, you can delete everything, and instead of typing it out yourself, type in out, and then you're going to look for the output content that you specified. So in this case, mine is under message.content. So if you remember earlier, I said we're going to find choices, message, content. And when you click it, you should see an example value here. So we'll double click this, click save, we'll save our changes, and then we'll go test out the app one more time. So if you're ever having trouble, you can always open up your developer tools by right-clicking the page and clicking inspect. And then once you do this, you can go to the network tab, and then you can click here, and then I would recommend stopping the recording once the API has completed. You'll have the requests here. You can view the response in here if you need to diagnose any errors. But the idea is we've basically done it. We've taken it from this generic HTTP request that has this large body and kind of slimmed it down to provide only what we want. So I hope that was helpful. I know it was a bit of a rush and a little bit of a choppier video, but I was hoping that those that are really looking to do something like this have a good understanding of Appgyver. So again, all we're really doing is configuring your data resource, and then you're making sure that you're sending the user data, and we're setting that schema. So again, when you create the record, you're using this custom object so that you can use the create record function. And then when you get it back, you're just saying, hey, I want this specific data. So I hope that was useful. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment box below, and I'll see you all in the next video.